Ghost with Cats, Chapter 19, A Child Clone. The wind was still howling hours later. Annie stirred a large pot of hot cocoa on the stove and made sweet popcorn under Brisa's watchful eye. She had an elk roast and vegetables in the oven, slowly cooking for dinner. Boaz and Vorn were playing chess again. In the library, Tal was reading a book Rabbi Jacob gave him. All they could do was wait out the blizzard. Annie and Bree settled in front of the big screen to watch the nativity pageants being broadcast from all over the world. With their cocoa and kettle corn, Bree clapped every time the baby was born and the angels sang, or when they escaped the evil king. Annie rubbed his head, laughing. He was completely amazed at all the children. She fondly told him, "You're the biggest child of them all, and that isn't a bad thing." "Why, Lady Annie?" "Because you have a pure heart." She had learned from Vorn it had only been 8 years since Brice awoke, but his intelligence and protective instincts were unusually high, and so Vorn selected him to be Tal's personal guard instead of an older, more experienced sword pet. Brice never had a childhood. No clone did. They woke at the biological equivalent of 12 and immediately went into training. It made Annie more determined to give him happy memories. She was going to be the big sister he never had. The cats, David and Solomon, were settled securely into Brisa's lap, while Goliath stretched out in front of the fireplace. Annie never met anyone who drew felines like she did. He patted Brice on the head, took his mug to the kitchen for a refill, and added extra mini marshmallows, just like he liked. Soon Tal and Vorn joined them. The Eloh found themselves drawn in by the pageantry, music, and how different it was from anything in their own culture. There were simple versions and elaborate versions of the same story, more styles of music than they ever imagined existed. It was celebrated in every language. Each time zone, it seemed, had its own version, and some time zones had more than one. It was fascinating. So many cultures on a single world. So different from the singular population identity of the Eloh and its colonies. After midnight, Brice was asleep on the rug in front of the big screen, snoring. Goliath, David, and Solomon were next to him, their rumbling purrs almost as loud. Vorn retired to meditate before bed. Annie sniffed. Paul looked over at her. She was curled on the corner of the sofa, looking up at the moon through the snow-covered skylight. She looked so beautiful and so lost. He spoke her name. She didn't answer. Her consciousness wasn't there. He knew where and when she was. He rose and went over to where she sat, lifted her into his arms, and reclined holding her against his chest. She closed her eyes as tears ran down her cheeks. He gave her a small lick on her forehead and nuzzled her hair, his thumb gently wiping the wetness, as he whispered to her that it was safe, he was there. She made a whimpering, sobbing sound and cried for a long time. It hurt his soul that she was so bereft. Paul knew what he felt for her was what her people called love, but soon he would be leaving, and she could not come with him, not yet, so they must remain friends. Right now, his friend was broken under the weight of the horror of her memories. He could only hope she would let him carry part of that weight for a while. Slowly, she relaxed and uncurled. Slowly, her tears stopped. Her breathing became less like sobs and steadier. He waited, holding her as they reclined together on the overstuffed sofa. It was all he could do, as her soul hemorrhaged with her fear. The music from the pageants, the crackle of the fireplace, and Brisa's snores were the only sounds. The storm had passed outside and inside. "Tall?" she whispered finally. "Yes, Annalise. Y'all know that no matter how careful we are, no matter how hard we plan, everything is going to go sideways as soon as your ships break the atmosphere," she said. "Yes, I do," he responded. "I think I have an idea," she volunteered. "I think we have the same idea," he replied, "but I do not want to leave here." "Me neither." She shifted to look up at him. He admired her eyes. They were the richest color he had ever seen, so different from the solid, very dark brown of his. In her eyes, the brown and gold and green blended perfectly. He remembered the afternoon they walked out of the shop, and she pressed her lips against his under the mistletoe. She apologized before, and afterward told him the story. It was for good luck and long life, but he had also learned it was for love. He remembered how still she stood as he wielded the sword around them. She had barely known him, and yet she trusted he would not harm her. He wished he could kiss her just once more, but he couldn't. So he closed his eyes, pulling her head gently against his chest, and rested his cheek on top of her hair. He ran the tip of his tongue over the backs of his thumbs. They felt slightly swollen, and his teeth were more pointed. His predator wanted to keep her, but it could not be, and his heart hurt a little more. "Tall, just lay with me for a while, Annalise." His mind dwelt on what Rabbi Jacob told him. Once upon a time, the sons of his people had looked upon the daughters of her people and found them to be beautiful, and taken them as wives. Then it was decided that their peoples should not dwell together any more. He could see why the decision was made. The aggressive nature of his people would have destroyed the beauty of this world and its cultures. But he could also see why his brother made the choice to violate the ancient mandate. It felt wonderful to be with her. Yet he was aware that in 8 days, leaving her was going to hurt worse than anything he had ever known. They could only be allies, friends, he resolved. He inhaled slowly and fell into a deep, dreamless sleep. Hours later, he woke alone. Even the cats were gone. It was snowing lightly on Christmas morning when Tall woke up to the sound of a very happy Brice in the next room. There was a green wrapped box on the end of his bed. He knew what it was. He was with Annie when she bought the rare sword for him. The gift had almost cost them their freedom. Breeze, come here, Tall called out. Breeze came in holding something. He bowed and responded, Yes, master. Breeze comes. Why are you so loud this morning? Tall demanded crossly. Breeze woke to a Christmas gift. Breeze has never received a gift before, the sword pet declared excitedly and happily held out the largest chocolate bar Tall had ever seen. The label revealed it weighed 25 pounds. Tall started laughing. He couldn't help it. He remembered it was the first thing Annie bought and was wrapped in red paper. Do not eat it all at once. 1 pound at a time. Do you understand? Tall ordered. Breeze nodded eagerly, a giant smile on his face. Would you like to see my present? Tall inquired. Yes, master. Please open the Christmas gift. Breeze responded excitedly. Tall realized Annie was correct. He really was just a large child. So he unwrapped the sword case and lifted out the blade. Breeze eyed it, amazed. It is a fine sword, master. It must have a grand story to tell. We will never know it, Breeze, but the beginning of its new story will be when Lady Annie's student warned us and we escaped the evil men who wished to capture us again. He told him, Lady Annie is special. Can we keep her, master? Breeze begged. Tall knew his true meaning and refused. No, Breeze, we cannot. No matter how much we want to. Our home is not safe for Lady Annie. She must stay here, and we must be strong, knowing she is safe. Do you understand? A tear ran down the clone's cheek, and he hugged his chocolate. Breeze will miss his new sister. Breeze likes feeling loved. So do I, Breeze. So do I, Tall admitted quietly, laying the sword in its silk-lined box. Downstairs they found Boaz smoking something called a pipe and thanking Annie for the excellent tobacco. Bourne was holding a small rectangular device called a Kindle. From him, Tall knew it contained 3,000 digital books, and a note on the back read, Can you find my 30 ghost? It was basically a puzzle. Annie challenged him to find the books she ghost wrote. It's Christmas and your birthday, Annalise, and we don't have any presents for you, Boaz announced with a puff around his pipe. Annie just grinned at them. Giving presents that bring real happiness is the best Christmas present of all. Breakfast is almost ready. As if on cue, the kitchen timer dinged. Annie took a pan of pastries out of the oven. She flipped it over onto a large piece of baking paper and peeled the sheet off the bottom, revealing nuts and caramelized sugar under cinnamon rolls. They smelled tantalizing. She pulled a second pan out and repeated the process, but those rolls contained maple bacon cooked into the nuts and caramel. They smelled even better. Taking a baking torch, she ran it over the top, crisping the sugary goodness. I worked on a narrated recipe book. Rule of ghostwriting number 2. Authenticity comes from doing your own research. Know the details. So I tried all the recipes. I was sure I would end up so fat. She giggled, then inhaled over the pastries. Mmm. Boaz laughed. I'm glad I'm not kosher. Breeze was practically bouncing, waiting for her to finish, so she kept swatting his hand. Vorn and Tall watched amused as they made themselves heaping plates of breakfast meats and eggs he and Vorn prepared earlier. Breeze, no! They have to cool, she scolded. They are cool enough for Breeze to eat, Lady Annie, he begged. He was actually drooling. Eat your other breakfast first, and I mean you have to chew it before you swallow. Then you can have some. She giggled. Lady Annie promise? Yes, I promise. Breeze slid the whole parchment of bacon praline topped cinnamon rolls toward himself, grinning mischievously. Breeze will eat these, but what will Master eat? Annie choked on her coffee as Boaz roared with laughter. Bourne's jaw dropped at Breeze's boldness. On Eloh, no clone would dare speak to their master in such a manner. But Tall narrowed his eyes and folded his arms, playing along. Master thinks Master will eat Breeze's share, mimicking the manner in which the pet spoke. Breeze's eyes widened, then he hung his head. Yes, Master, he rumbled meekly. Master will eat Breeze's share. And Breeze can eat Lady Annie's share, Tall finished, smiling. Breeze's head popped back up. Really, Master? Yes, really, Breeze, Annie answered. Then she winked at Tall. You may have my share of the bacon ones. You two are terrible, Boaz laughed. Bourne just shook his head. Breeze would be too indulged to return to his station as a normal foot soldier and sword pet when they returned to Eloh. He would have to be kept with the House of Vance's personal guard, perhaps with young Tome. After lunch, Bourne and Boaz spent the afternoon working on the communication system designs and carrying boxes out to the hot springs storeroom. While Annie made candy, Breeze watched Annie melting butter, sugar, and corn syrup in separate pots. She added chocolate chips to one and peanut butter to the other. Breeze was smelling all of her ingredients as she cooked. He was very curious about peanut butter, so she told him, Get a spoon and try some. It is made from the roasted legumes that grow underground. She talked about how peanut butter came about while she stirred. Then she turned when Breeze grabbed her arm. Tall, help me! Annie shouted. He rushed into the kitchen. Breeze was choking on a thick brown liquid or paste. It was coming out of his mouth. His face was turning purple. Hold his head, Annie ordered. Tall grabbed his pet's head. Annie stuck her hand into Breeze's mouth and scooped out a handful of the stuff. Don't y'all bite me, Breeze. She got a second handful out, and Breeze took a breath, coughing the stuff all over Tall and Annie. Annie grabbed a towel off the counter and wiped his mouth as Breeze was making weird faces and trying to push the sticky stuff out of his mouth with his tongue. What is this substance? Tall demanded. His pet was almost killed consuming it. It was both oily and sticky at the same time, too thick to be a liquid, but not a solid, and now it was in his hair and all over his clothing. It's peanut butter, she snapped. Annie held Breeze's jaw. Open, Breeze, she ordered. Then she scooped more of it out of the sides of his cheeks and off the roof of his mouth. After a few minutes, Breeze was still making faces, but he was breathing and swallowing almost normally. She sat back on her knees. All three of them were kneeling on the kitchen floor, covered in the sticky, oily mess. But Tall and Breeze were the worst. Tall thought it was the most disgusting thing he had ever dealt with, even if it did smell good. Why did he ever come to this world with its weird foods that taste odd and have little nutritional value and could kill someone? His thoughts raged. Why did you eat it, pet? Tall growled. Breeze lacks peanut butter, master, but peanut butter does not like Breeze. the sword pet complained, still trying to swallow the rest of the sticky goo as he licked it off his fingers. Vorn and Boaz just stood in the door, looking around at the kitchen. Eyeing the mess, Boaz asked, "How much did you try to eat, son?" "Breeze just try on a spoon, like Lady Annie said." Boaz was shaking, trying to contain his laughter. Walking over to the counter, he picked up the largest wooden spoon Annie had ever seen and a nearly empty jar of peanut butter. Breeze had tried to eat the entire thing in one bite. Tall made a disgusted sound. Annie started to facepalm, but caught herself because her arm to her elbow, was covered in peanut butter and clone drool. At that moment, the smoke alarms went off. They turned as one to look at the stove. "Lady Annie, you appear to be burning 2 pots of confections," Bourne announced drolly, turning off the burners. She gave Paul a death glare. "When is y'all's flight again?" she hissed. He returned the look. "Not soon enough," he growled. They glared at each other in mock hostility for a solid minute before both burst out laughing as she wiped a smear of peanut butter off Tall's cheek. Grabbing another towel, Annie rubbed the smeared peanut butter off Breeze's face and neck. They sent Breeze, then she sent Breeze and Tall to go shower. Boaz was still laughing as he carried the 2 pots of burnt sweets out of the house. As they cleaned, Vorn asked a question. Mischief shined in his eyes. "Are all the holidays on your worlds so exciting?" Annie giggled. "No, Vorn. Normally, making Christmas candy doesn't involve nearly killing one of my guests. Trust me, the next holiday will involve nothing more than watching a few fireworks go off while we wait for your ship." He bowed his head to her. "That is good, Lady Annie, because Boaz told me I'm going to need a vacation after our vacation." Annie burst out laughing, and he joined. Suddenly he tipped his head lightly, slightly, as if listening. His eyes shined with mirth. "It seems the master cannot get all of the peanut butter out of his hair. He is unhappy about the smell." Annie retrieved another small bottle of dish soap from the pantry. "Go on, I'll finish here. Use this soap. I guess it's a good thing Breeze has no hair." "It is a very good thing." Vorn stood and bowed with a flourish. "Lady Dove, Annie." She rewarded him with a beautiful smile. "Sackertalon, Vorn." Vorn stopped on the stairs to look back toward the kitchen for a moment. Boaz joined Annie cleaning. They were laughing about something. She seemed to bring joy to all around her. He fervently wished they could bring her home with them, but he knew Eloh would be a very dangerous place for someone as fearful and timid as she. Perhaps someday she would be brave again. He meditated on a prayer for her soul to heal as he climbed the stairs to assist his master.